Minister, yesterday was the day that the British Government finally and formally and officially triggered the signing of the Brexit, some 9 months after the referendum back in June. And there's, by any stretch of the imagination, it was a sad day for Europe. It's very worrying and will have major ramifications for the citizens of this island. It has been described in some of the papers this morning as not just a storm for Ireland, but an earthquake. While EU member states will be negotiating the terms of Brexit over the next 2 years and maybe even longer, it is a fact that Ireland is going to be the country that will lose most from this deal. The British Government seem to be determined to fly the Union Jack more and more while singing Rule Britannia. At the same time, they are saying that they want the most amicable and lovable divorces in the history of divorces. Citizens across our island, both north and south, are genuinely worried about the ramifications of Brexit and how it would seem that Ireland has very little influence in the actual outcome. People are worried about the government not being prepared enough, despite flying around from capital city to capital city, telling of our case and stating our case. But in the 6-page letter yesterday, the importance of not returning to hard borders was mentioned, and also mentioned was the peace process, which was given priority. The Good Friday Agreement is, after all, an international agreement which has to be upheld. The comments in relation to the common travel area are in place. They are welcome, but they are actually in place since the 1920s. However, what is really worrying from yesterday is what Chancellor Merkel responded to British Prime Minister May by slapping down any parallel talks on trade while the negotiations are ongoing. The UK is traditionally our largest trading partner, and we trade £1.2 billion in goods and services every week. Finance officials have already stated that Ireland could face a 30% decline in exports to the UK and a significant rise in unemployment. We all agree that the agri-food industry is the most significant industry in this country, employing people right across the country. Exports will be impacted upon, and also trade between north and south. Over 800 million litres of milk are imported from the north annually, and we export thousands upon thousands of our cattle to the north and import as many more. All these statistics are impacting on consumer confidence, as the British are already talking up trade deals between the US, Canada and South American countries. How can you say, Minister, and you come back and say the government are prepared, how can you say, Minister, that we are prepared, particularly in relation to the agri-food industry, when Board BIA, which is the agency charged by the state and the government to sell our industry, and they have only employed an extra 3 staff into the Brexit section of that department?
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to express my sympathy on behalf of the Government on the family of the late Captain Mark Duffy, whose funeral is today and for whose memory the flag is flying at half-mast. And we also hope that the other 2 families who are anxiously waiting will not have to wait long. First of all, I'd like to thank Deputy Moynihan for his question. I can assure the Deputy that the Government has entered into very long preparation for this event that occurred yesterday. This certainly is not of our choosing, and I agree with him on that front. But we have done very deep sectoral SWOT analysis, looked at the strengths, weaknesses, the opportunities and threats. And you're right, there are threats to some sectors and there are opportunities in others. We have revised our trade strategy. We've revised our job strategy. We've strengthened all of the agencies so that they would be in a position to assist companies to diversify, to train, to adopt lean mechanisms to be more competitive in their markets, to trade online. So there's many changes being supported by our agencies to ensure that companies are in a position to compete. We set out our priorities very clearly. And not only have we set out very clearly our priorities, but we have a very clear track record. You will recall that in the last 6 years, when economic trading conditions in Europe have been the most difficult for decades, this Government adopted policies which helped grow employment by 2% per annum, with 200,000 extra people back at work. That has been an export-led recovery based on stronger competitiveness, more diversification of our markets. So we are in a strong position to deal with this decision by the United Kingdom. I can assure you that we have secured the support, not just in Theresa May's letter, where very clearly you could see the government's priorities reflected in the letter, but Michel Barnier has also indicated frequently his consciousness of the Irish concerns. So those concerns have been very clearly set out by government, and we are preparing for the twists and turns of what a very difficult negotiation will be. This is not a straightforward one-line, single-line travel. It's going to be very difficult, and there will be issues that we will have to reflect on as they come. But we have put ourselves in a very strong position, both with our influence with key European partners among the 27, Michel Barnier and the negotiating team, and indeed the British, and we are prepared to participate to the full in these discussions and negotiations, which will have a profound impact on our country. But they will also offer opportunities as well, and we are equally prepared to seize those opportunities.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy.
And I would also, on behalf of my own party, we'd like to be associated with the expressions of sympathy to the family of Captain Mark Duffy and to all those that have been involved in that horrendous accident. Minister, I don't think that the agri-food industry will take much solace from what you have said. There is a huge industry out there, and most importantly is the talk-up by the British government in relation to supposedly trade deals between the US, Canada and South America. And we've seen in recent days where the quality of food that's been produced in some of these countries leave a lot to be desired. Irish agriculture industry has built enormously over the past 25 and going back to the centuries, and they have prided themselves on following the regulations stringently to produce one of the best and the safest food industries in the world. And to think or imagine, Minister, if I can just indulge me for a second, to think or imagine, Minister, Board BIA, which is the agency of state that is charged with marketing our products, has only got 4 key officials, extra key officials, in light of Brexit. You said that you were strengthening the agencies. If that is strengthening the agencies on behalf of the agri-food industry, well, heaven help us.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Well, the position is, our agricultural sectors are supported by not just Board BIA, but by Enterprise Ireland and by all the international agencies. Indeed, all of our embassies are now very closely aligned to the export drive that our companies are achieving. We're determined to open up new pathways, and Enterprise Ireland, as you know, has developed a Pathfinder programme, which allows agricultural companies in particular to open up new markets where they haven't been trading before. And I think that approach has been very successful. Yes, indeed, you're right that the agricultural sector is one of those sectors most exposed, because it has traditionally had a very high dependence on the UK's industry. But we have to support our companies to diversify, which we will do. But we also need to secure in these negotiations the protection of the standards, which you rightly say Europe values. And I can assure you that Europe, and not just Ireland, but Europe will be determined to protect the high standards of food, which are vital to the quality for consumers and the workings of our markets. So those, as I've been involved in many trade discussions, those will be high priorities, not just for Ireland, but throughout the European Union and for the negotiators.